Get that head, the heart, the gut connection, right? Get all that together. What
Oof.
is it that I know that I needed from myself as a child? What is it that I know that I need for myself as a teenager? What is it that I know that I need for myself as a me in this moment right now? What is it that my heart knows
Mm-hmm.
that it wants and it desires in this moment? What is it that my heart wanted and desired when it was young? What is it that my heart wanted and desired as a child? What is it that I intuitively know? What is it that I intuitively know is for the highest of my good, right? Like the highest good. Really get that head, heart, and gut connection together. Because the moment that you get those unmet needs and wants met, golden.
Unleash the untapped potential within you as we dive fearlessly into the realms of healing, personal growth, self-love, and uncharted territories of the human experience. Join us as we navigate relationships, conquer career and business milestones, and explore the depths of spirituality. This isn't just a podcast, it's a manifesto for the resilient, the ambitious, the soul-searching women and men of today. Grab your coffee and let's dive in with Beyond the Surface. Welcome back to another episode here on Beyond the Surface. And today I am joined by relationship coach and Amy, sorry, we are diving into all things breakups. And I am so excited to dive into this because we've all been through a breakup. I guarantee at some point in our lives we've experienced a breakup. So why not talk about it? Why not talk about it and unpack it a little bit more? So, Amy, thank you so much for joining me, for being here. I am so grateful and honored.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate you and your audience members for just having me on this amazing podcast today, or visual podcast today. However, you're watching this content, I hope that it resonates with you when it comes to breakups and healing your heart after breakup. Things happen, like my necklace falling off right now. It happens, but just being able to. Just pursue right through it and have that resiliency to go through it and charge right through it is what I'm here to talk about today. So I can't wait to just dive in.
Yeah. So before we do, I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. My name is Emi Valerio, and I am a relationship coach who specializes in breakup recovery. And why I do the work that I do is because I myself went through my own heart wrenching breakup, where if it wasn't for my own intuition, I would have probably been stuck in that toxic relationship, and trying to convince myself, right, that that relationship was best for me. In 2016, I went through my own breakup, and I found out through my dreams, my intuitive dreams, that this person was being unfaithful to me. And this person at the time was my fiance. So you could only imagine how my heart was just palpitating, like,
Yeah.
100 beats per minute because of the fact that I just found through this dream, right? And um, navigating through that to find myself in a place of peace, in a place of surrender, in a place of just freedom has
Mm.
been been such a blessing to me, because I know that had I not had the tools, or had I not had the spiritual intervention, or had I not had that shift, right? That identity shift that I desired in that moment, I would have probably still been stuck and stagnant in the level of emotions of fear versus being free where I am today in the level of just peace and surrender and love, right? So,
Yeah. And also I feel like there's so many things that we can unpack here too, especially
yeah.
if, there's just so many ways to unpack this. But going back to that breakup and that experience, What was that thing that helped you get through and move through that breakup?
Mm, what got me through that breakup is in that moment recognizing that there was more to life than pursuing a man, right? There was more
Mm,
to life than feeling as if I wasn't as worthy to be pursued or as worthy to be loved, right? What got me through that breakup was really finding myself, my identity, my self-worth, and creating a space to love on me. That is
mm,
what got me through that breakup, because oftentimes we as women, we are told, you know what I'm saying, like the best thing is or the end goal, right? The end game is to become a wife. That's the end goal, that's the end game, right? To get the ring, that's what we need to do, right?
mhm.
When I release the attachment to that end goal that society has ingrained in my head since childhood, because you have to remember, we all watched Cinderella. We've all watched, you name it, we've watched it, right? All these Disney stories that make that end goal becoming a wife as the happily ever after effect, right? Once I've released that attachment to that that being my happily ever after, I received so much freedom and so much creativity to realize what my happily ever after looks like for me, right? And being okay to say, okay, it's okay if marriage is not in the cards for me, but if it is, at least it would be with the right person, and not just because of the fact that this person is going to give me that end goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have to like I agree so much in the sense of this end goal is always kind of like it's the marriage. And like kind of like what you said, right? It's beautiful if that happens.
Yeah.
And also, can we surrender to whatever path it actually is meant to be, in the sense that what if that's not the plan? What if that's not the plan? I kind of believe in, having different lifetimes. So it's like this
Yeah.
in this current lifetime, maybe that's not the purpose. Maybe that's not the intention of your soul in this particular lifetime. Um and this whole questioning, I feel like, and this is not just women, but also men too. I feel like all of us as human beings, looking at the societal norms that have been placed on us
Yeah.
in so many areas of our lives, right? From when we were young, it's go to school, get a job, get the career, and be in that place,
Yeah.
and then retire. And like, this is what we've been told. And it's also get married, have kids. And at what point are we sitting with, do I want this for myself? And that was a really big journey for me, around more so around like kids. And I also had that very same journey, I feel like, when it came to relationships, where I was that type of person that was kind of like, to everybody else, like, I was afraid of commitment, but I think there was like this deep knowing of not wasting time with a person that I knew wasn't going to be my person.
Yeah.
Like, why am I gonna waste my time? Why am I gonna waste your time? I kind of had this like three strike policy, and it was like, listen, if three things happen and it's just not resonating with me, it doesn't align with who I am and what I have to offer, or just it's just you're interrupting my boundaries, like, that's it, man. We're done. And
Yeah.
so to the outside world, it kind of looked like she's flaky, she's afraid of commitment. And I feel like there's some aspects, there was parts of that. Like, I definitely had fear and this like desire to have a man in my life.
Yeah.
But then when that surrender happened, and when this conversation switched around, I'm good, like, on my own too. I'm good whether or not it happens for me or not. I know I'm good. I know I'm good in who I am, and what I have to offer, and just like my path.
Yeah.
And it was in that surrendering that I had this relationship come in, and now we're like on this path of getting married. And I'm like, and this is what happens when you just let go a little bit and let go of the control that we so desperately want to have. But
Yeah.
this questioning energy around, yeah, just like, is this what I really want for myself? Do I want to be in a relationship? Do I want marriage? Do I want kids?
Yeah. And
It's not a bad thing to question.
no, and that's what self discovery is all about. I think we as a
Mm,
society is so afraid to discover who we are. And that's because society didn't allow us nor give us a place to do it, right? We go to school and we learn math, we learn history, we learn English, but none of it was really directed to really learning who we are as people, right? That's why, in school, social emotional learning is really, it's pivotal and it's important so that children can get to know who they are, right? And the
yeah.
unfortunately, our age bracket didn't get that, right? What they're receiving now is not what we received back then,
Hmm.
because of whatever purpose and reason. But once we get to tap into who we are and tap into our wants, our needs, our desires, and get clarity, because clarity is what's important, right? How are you going to know what you want to manifest into your life if you're not clear as to what is it that you want to manifest, right? This is why spending time with yourself, although it might be scary, although it might be, lonely there, right, is really
Yeah.
pivotal and important, because the moment that you are capable of just sitting by yourself and really asking these deep dive, rooted questions as to what your desires are, your wants and your needs, it's going to be a pivotal moment as to the type of person you are attracting into your life.
And then you'll have a moment where your dreams tell you some things that you need to know. And that, like, that happens. That is when you say that, I'm like, that is such an incredible experience to have. And what a connection for you to have with your intuition and with what a connection that you have. And that is this piece, I feel like, why we stay in relationships longer than we need to. I feel like, and it doesn't, and I don't just mean romantic relationships too, because our friendships that we have, girlfriends and other friendships that we have, they also too can have a season, and they can also too have an ending. All types of relationships, all types of breakups, there is this piece around that. There is all these different seasons to relationships.
Yeah, there's so many stages of relationships, and like how you're sharing is so true, right? Like, because we have relationships with our coworkers, we have our relationships with friends, we have relationships with our bosses, right? And so when those relationship ends and they're severed, like for instance, you get laid off, that's a severed relationship,
Yeah.
right? That's a loss in itself, because not only is that a loss to you not no longer having a job, right? That career that you thought you were going to have for the rest of your life, but now you have severed a tie with your income. You no longer have the
Yep.
income that you were relying on solely to get you by, right? So now you have this breakup, because it's a breakup in money, a breakup in your career, a breakup in your relationships, right? That you are now having to navigate, right? But how do you navigate these relationships with ease? This is what I do, this breakup with ease, right? Really, how to navigate these breakup with ease so that you can learn how strategies to have a healthier relationship, right, with yourself and
Mm,
others, right? And for my clients, what I do is I literally get clear on what is it that they want, their desires, but more mindly, we go back and tap into their mindset, right? We really get to the root cause of why is it that when you are going through this breakup, you have this severe, like, fight, flight, or freeze response, like, or what is it exactly like that happened to have you have these type of responses. Then we shift their identity, right? We go through identity shifting work so that they are more empowered, right, when it comes to
yeah.
this loss, or this grief, right? But then on top of that, we create an action plan, right? An action plan so that they are capable of achieving the goals that they're desiring. Most of my clients, when they come to me, they go through the breakup of a relationship, so of heartache. So their end goal is to, you know, date again after this breakup, right? Find trust again within themselves and trust within
Mm.
others after this breakup. How to not be lonely. You get what I'm saying? How to not just choose any person because of the loneliness, right? We go through that. Like, what are some action steps? But then, what are some things that we can do to help you heal from those abandonment wounds or the wound of grief and loss, right? Like, what is that we can do to get you there, right? It's really important um, to be able to navigate towards a healthy relationship. So,
I think what's interesting, what always comes up is it comes back to this curiosity. Because I
yeah,
think like there's this like curiosity and openness to want to look at the relationship that maybe you had and that ultimately ended, and just being able to look at it from this like bird's eye view and kind of like what went wrong, what went really well, what like to be able to look at it in that way and kind of dissect it and pick it apart. Because I think too that piece around just like what do we want, I
yeah,
don't even think we ask ourselves that question enough. And so when we sit with that, sometimes we get to this place where we're like, wait a second, this person doesn't even align with what I want, or this particular career or job or whatever it is doesn't actually align with what I want. And then we're like, oh, wait a second. Hello, this is why I'm not in that relationship anymore.
yeah. I mean, I think we want to remember that, like, before we get to the clarity and like that acceptance piece, we are going, especially in a breakup. I know
Yeah.
that when that breakup happened, I was not thinking about getting clear about myself.
No,
That was the
100% not.
last thing that I was thinking about. Like, the first thing was, getting state of shock, denial, like really like saying to myself, no, that can't happen. Especially when the dream came in, I was just like, maybe my intuition is not right. Maybe
Mm,
there's more to this. My gut intuition was not, maybe it's not correct. So I'm going into a stage of denial and not really accepting this. And then realizing that the breakup was really happening, I, went through a whole guilt tripping myself, saying maybe I'm the problem, saying maybe the relationship ended because of me. Maybe, my mom is right, or maybe, my mom is right, maybe I should just marry him just because, I love him, and maybe I should just forgive him. Like, why am I not being, accepting? Why can't I just forgive? And that's what I was thinking about at the time. And then going towards the phase of anger and just being like, you know what, forget him, forget that man, forget any man. I don't need a
yep.
man. I could, I don't need a relationship. I can do good all by myself, that type of limiting
Yeah.
story, right? Because had I known then what I know now, um, in regards to acceptance and forgiveness, is
Hmm.
that all of that in itself has nothing to do with the other person, but it has to do with me being able to forgive myself, being able to accept myself and where I am in this moment, being able to accept my emotions. Yeah, guilt. Hey, guilt, how are
Hmm.
you doing? This is why we're feeling what we're feeling, right? So yeah, I think that when it came to that relationship, and what I've learned now is that we have to give ourselves more grace than what we do. We give others so much grace when it comes to their downfalls, or their sadness, their grief, their anger. That when we get
Hmm.
angry, we get sad, we get just in a pit, in a pitfall. We, instead of giving ourselves that grace, we are, nagging ourselves down with negative thoughts and negative limiting beliefs. And it's like, but what if we could have just given ourselves?
Mm, I have chills. Chills.
Mm,
That's 100. We spiral into a place of and shaming ourselves, and
oh
like you
yeah,
said, guilt, right? Like we are our own worst critic. And it's in those moments that and this is the challenging part, right? Is because of course hindsight afterwards. We get hindsight afterwards. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But in that thick of it, because I agree, like in the thick of it, and you know what, no matter what anyone says, I feel like it's really hard to listen to anyone in those
yeah,
moments, because I remember coming out of relationships where, just feeling in a sense like taken advantage of, and somehow it was my fault. You know, I felt like it was my fault. I'm like, what did I do wrong? I was always looking at myself, always
Yeah.
looking at what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And yet, like, just never putting, not necessarily blame, but just how did we both co create this relationship? How did we both contribute to this? And so, in that, I feel like, of course, when you have the tools, it's easier. Yeah, you're going to experience the guilt and the shame and the anger and the sadness and all of that. I just find that the tools, they then support you. You know, you can give yourself a little bit more grace. But for those that don't necessarily have the tools, what would you say, like, when being in the thick of it? Like, maybe someone listening to this right now is in the thick
Mm.
of something, and like, what do we do? How do we support ourselves in that? Like, how do we give ourselves grace when we're feeling like absolute shit?
Ooh, so many different ways, and this is what I work with my clients with because I've been given that I got like listen. I've been given the tools that I didn't even know it would help me when in the thick of it,
Mhm.
right? And I'm so grateful that I had those tools. And this is why I do what I do because so many women don't have those tools to go through that relationship, piecing back the pieces, coming out, the pieces of their heart and coming out of it stronger than ever before, right?
Mhm.
Instead of waiting 3 to 4 years to just recognize that you are just going through the patterns over and over again, right? um, I'm really helping women say, within the 3 month period that I work with them, saying, okay, this is how I'm, whenever I'm feeling these recognizing these emotions, this is how I'm going to go through it. So, what I would say is EFT tapping has been very helpful. If nobody knows that is emotional freedom technique. And so what we do is that we go through the meridian tapping points to really support us with releasing that energy that is within our bodies when it comes to um, anxiety or loss, right? So EFT tapping was very big for me. Another big thing that was huge was hypnotherapy. um,
Mhm.
and that's because I was able to get to my subconscious mind and really heal my subconscious mind from the limiting beliefs of feeling unworthy or the limiting beliefs of not being enough, right? That was something that was big for me, feeling that I was not good enough to be a wife or not good enough to be the girlfriend, right? Like that was something that I needed to shift. And now knowing like I'm a bomb ass chick and nobody could ever take that from me, right? Nobody could
Yeah.
ever take how amazing I am and, how, God has put me on this earth to be. And hypnotherapy definitely
Mhm.
instilled that inside of me. And just forgiveness. I think we something so simple as forgiving, especially after a breakup, is really important because it's forgiveness is not for that person, as I said before, it's for yourself to be able to release all that energy that is inside of you that you're holding inwards, right? And just releasing it out onto this world so that you can mutate it to love, right? Love for
Mhm.
yourself, right? Using that energy that was placed onto you for negativity and just transmuting it into love. Oh my God, how empowering is that? Knowing that you are the Harry Potter of your life, like you wave that magic wand on yourself and really can create the love that was, or that energy of just that energy that was meant to bring your downfall, right? And creating it and making it into love so that the world can radiate and feel that
Mm.
love that you have within is just empowering. So self
Yeah.
love, it goes back to that. Self love is the key. Really taking the time to yourself and utilize and figuring out what best practice is going to help you heal, right? Because there's so many. I can keep spitting them out. But what's going to work for you is the most important part. What is it that you're going to incorporate in your day is important, right? Because I can say,
Mm.
okay, meditation. That's one of the tools that helped me. 'Cause it was, but are you going to use it on a daily basis to really help you heal? Are you going to use it on a monthly basis to help you heal. Like I can say
Yeah.
visualization. Are you going to use these tools, right? You really have to start somewhere. And recognizing what tools is going to fit into your lifestyle is key.
Yeah. And the question that comes up is asking ourselves, what do I need right now in this moment? Especially as women. As women, we change so much over the
Yeah.
course of a month. You know, our cycle is the most beautiful thing, and it's fun to build that relationship with our beautiful cycle. And that just creates a lot of different emotions. And so that simple thing of what do I need right now
Yeah.
in this moment, and trusting what comes through, trusting the intuition that comes up for you, because you know better than anyone else of what you need in that moment. And I want to go back to the forgiveness piece, because I have to agree, like that is one of the most freeing things that we can do for ourselves after a breakup. I personally believe that there's there's almost like a, not a specific timeline, but there's like this readiness that comes to this point
Mm.
of you being able to forgive. And one of these things that I did, after a couple relationships, and it kind of actually all started with like my dad, but after being in relationships, especially ones that just like, they were really weighing on me, they were weighing on my heart, and I didn't love the way things ended, whether it just be on my part and how I handled the situation, even how that person handled the situation, just like things that were weighing on my heart. And I actually, like, people talk about writing a letter and maybe you just don't send it.
Yeah.
I went straight for the DM and I was like, here we go. Like, and I sent a message. And it's interesting, the contrast. Like, one relationship, I was met with me, like a kind of like almost like a very beautiful, like, me as well. Like, I apologize for everything that I've done and met with that. And others met with just like no response and like,
Yeah.
don't talk to me kind of thing, which is totally cool. And it had nothing to do with that person, and it had nothing to do with the response that I was going to receive, but it was like the piece around just letting it go and taking ownership. I feel like was such a big
Yeah.
part for me too, because that piece around ownership is, we're not letting that person like off the hook.
Yeah.
We're
No.
just taking ownership for our part,
Yeah.
our, like, and it allows us to take back control and of just the narrative that we're telling ourselves. And that was like a very big piece for me, was that ownership of like, this is how. And of course, after reflection, that's why I feel like there's this like period of time after, like, the emotions settle, and then you get to a place where like you can reflect and you can just see and have maybe a little bit more hindsight. But that allowed me to show up into this space of being able to forgive myself, forgive that other person, and really just like exhale it from my body. Like, doing that physical act of putting words and sending that message was that for me. It was like such a release out of my body and out of my system,
Yeah.
and like able to just move on from it.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that in our lives we are at cause, right? In NLP, there's a concept called cause and effect, right? And so what that means is
Mhm.
that in at cause is that we are at cause for our beliefs, our values, our past experiences, right? Like what underlining influencing what's underlining the underlining factors that are influencing our thoughts, feelings, and actions are these things, right? And because we've
Yeah.
had this belief system, this value system, right, it's what create our cause reactions, right, to certain things. And then the
Yeah.
effect is just that, oh, it's observable as just a regular emotional response, like, oh, this is just happening just because, when we have a understanding that we are at cause for our life, it's so important and empowering, right, to know
Mhm.
that our emotions, once we get an understanding about our emotions, our thought patterns, our behaviors, right, we can take charge of our lives, right, versus just
Yeah.
saying, oh, it's just going to happen just because I'm going to be mad just because I'm going to be mad. No, I'm going to be mad because of the fact that these are the feelings of, it's bubbling up from my past, right? Like, oh, I was abandoned in childhood. So when you leave me, right, today, I'm going to feel some type of emotional pain or hurt, or just something is going to bubble up and come out. The emotion of anger is going to come out because of I'm now correlating what had happened to me in the past to what is currently happening to me in this moment, right? This is why it's important to get to know who you are and really get to know these past triggers, right? So that when you go into a new relationship, you can say, hold up, this is not, I'm not angry because of what that person is doing. I'm angry because it's simulating to me something, an emotion that had happened to me while I was a child, right? And yeah, writing a
Yeah.
letter is amazing when it comes to releasing, right? Especially an emotion after a breakup. For me, I didn't write a letter to the person. For me, I simply spoke to them, and I shared with them,
Mm.
you know, saying my experience. And I think what we need to understand is that sometimes I have to think of life as a simulation. Like this is just the, you know, the simulation of life, right? And if I see myself, right, from a point of view, like if I'm watching my life as a movie, right, a projection of a
Yep.
movie, what would I want that main character to feel like? Like how what would I want that main character to do? And in that moment, I was just like, I just want to be able to forgive him. Like I just want to be able to release and, you know, just share with him my experience of the relationship. Like this is how I saw you in the relationship. This is how I saw myself. Unfortunately, it didn't, you know, come to plan out the way that I thought it would. But I thank you for the experience, and you know, I care for
Mm.
you as a friend, and I wish you nothing but the best. But you know, knowing that it can't move forward, I can no longer accept this type of action is what's important to me, right, and valuable. One of the things that I teach my clients in my 3 month program is the Ho'oponopono prayer. It's really the Hawaiian culture really did a big one when they like taught
Mm.
this prayer for reconciliation and forgiveness. And it starts off by just saying, I'm sorry for, and then just sharing exactly what you're sorry for. You know, please forgive me for, you know, whatever it is, X, Y, and Z that you want that person to forgive you for. And then thank you, right? Because you want to exude gratitude for the opportunity to just be able to heal, and the opportunity to really flourish and grow within that experience that you've had in that situation. And you know, I love you, you know, like I shared, I said I care for you, I love you. Just a declaration of just being compassionate, right? Because we're human, we make mistakes. You get to be compassionate to the other person
Mm.
and show up for them the way that you wish that they showed up for you, you know. um because you're an extension of like, when you get to be an extension of love on this earth. I can't say that enough. Like this earth has gone through so much pain and so much suffering. Like the earth is in shambles right now, and we get to be a vessel of love, a vessel of compassion for people when they feel like the world is giving up on them. Like
Mm.
how amazing is that? So
100%. Oh my gosh. When you, that speaks to me too. Like it just, we get to, and we get to have these experiences too. And I know they are hard in the moment,
yeah,
but
tough
this
on
like
the soul.
appreciation, yeah, like this appreciation afterwards too for like all the experiences, right? Like getting to a place where I can appreciate and also just understand, my parents, like my dad and my mom separating when I was so young was such a big part in my journey and my story, and him
Yeah.
not being around obviously made such an impact on my relationships. But getting to a place where I could be so grateful for that, it like it just it hits differently. And it also means that I get to have a relationship with my dad where
Hmm.
we have a relationship, period. Like it's not one where we don't talk, we don't speak. And like I get to have a relationship because I can sit in gratitude rather than being fault him for the rest of his life. Because at one point, he was also a 20-year-old making
Yeah.
mistakes. I was 20 and I can see myself making mistakes too. I
20.
made some poor decisions.
Yeah.
So why can't I have that same grace for him as well? You know what I mean? Um, yeah, it's just it's beautiful when we can land in this place of gratitude. How has now, like, how did the question that I'm thinking of is like you coming to this place where like I get to be open to receive love again.
Yeah.
And maybe it's again like there's it's kind of like for ourselves for sure first, and being enough, that being enough, and also accepting of new relationships that come into our lives. Like,
Mhm.
how has that been for you, and what's, been contributing to that?
I think that after that relationship has ended, I didn't jump back into a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It took me about 3, 4 years before I jumped into another relationship. In the between time, I was learning about myself, and I think that we need to give ourselves the learning curve, because we're always going to be learning about ourselves. Who I was 10 years ago is not the same person who I was 5 years ago. Who I was 5 years ago is not
Mm-hmm.
the same person I was maybe like 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago I was a different person. You know what I'm saying? To who I am today, right?
100%.
I get to like I guess the word reinvent myself, right? I get to you know, rediscover. Oh, thank you, God. I was like, reinvention, maybe a little too far fetched, but rediscover myself and meet myself with where I am is really important. And so after that relationship, I was able to meet another person, amazing person, who now I share a child with. And even in that relationship, I was able to learn a lot more about myself, because now I'm seeing myself from, okay, what was it that I feel worked in that relationship, and what was it that I feel didn't work in in that relationship, and how is it that I want to um, how do I want to be, right? Like how do I want to be and show up for
Mm-hmm.
myself in the next relationship, and taking all of that to my next relationship. And the one thing that I would say with that, the relationship that I was in after the relationship with my ex, is that I had to learn a lot about my communication style. I think that that's another thing that
Mm.
we don't learn in grade school. And I had to learn how to really communicate with my partner and understand that this is a partnership. It's a you and I ship, not just a me ship. And we, as anybody on this earth, planet Earth, is really ego and me driven, right? Ego and me driven.
Yep.
That we need to uh, get out of our egos, and that was a hard part, right, for me. Really getting out of my ego and being able to communicate better for my partner. And although I had the tools, because I have my master's in counseling, so I have the tools, right? I have the tools to teach others. You guys,
Yeah.
I have the tools to teach others, that when
Yeah.
I came to myself, I wasn't doing that observation for myself. I was doing that observation for others. And now I'm capable of
Mm-hmm.
saying to myself and looking at that relationship, oh, the relationship with the father of my child, and saying, this is how I want to be within that relationship, so that I can do better and have X, Y, and Z, the healthy relationship with him, and our, parenting our child. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's such a big part. Communication. Oof. I mean, we had to go through like marriage classes, and that was like one of those things that came up was like communication. It's like, oof, yeah, like that's like a forever ongoing, as someone, and that kind of goes to show why, like for me, writing letters was such a big thing because like
yeah,
the actual speaking of it was
yeah.
so difficult for me. Like it was just a very uncomfortable process for me, whereas like putting pen to paper was just like my safe place. And
Can I ask
and
you
so
something?
yeah.
Like, did you have an anxious attachment style? The more that you speak on it, I'm like, you sound like you had an anxious attachment style at one point. Have you ever did
To
like
what specifically?
um have you ever read the book Attachment Theory? So in attachment theory, there's a different attachment style. So there's the anxious
Mhm.
attachment style, there's the secure attachment style, and then there's the avoidant attachment style. So those are the three like
Mm,
main categories of attachments that we have within our life. And the more that you speak about it, like,
mm.
because you said you were abandoned by you're not abandoned, but your father
Yeah.
wasn't there. It that kind of leans to an anxious attachment style, because I had the similar triggers and traumas
Interesting.
that led me to, when it came to relationships, I would. feel like not of like I'll feel like I have to cling on to the person, so that they
Mm,
can stick around and stay, versus feeling like, okay, no, like this relationship, we get to be healthy in this relationship, we get to stand our firm in our, our both of our desires without feeling as if one has to deplete our desires for the other ones to stand strong type of situation. So
mm-hmm.
that also helped me, is really understanding my attachment style. I was an anxious attachment style, through and through,
Yeah.
and I had to become secure, not for myself but also for my son, because I want him to understand what a secure relationship is, so that when he gets older and he finds
Yeah.
himself a partner, he gets to say to that partner, what I'm saying, like, we're not our trauma, we're not our, our pains, we get to do better from that, so
Yeah. Um, I think for sure. It's interesting when I reflect on the on how you've described it, and I'm kind of curious actually to probably go and read that book now. But
yeah,
um, it's interesting. I don't feel like maybe I just can't see that right now in
yeah,
the more so romantic relationships, but I had that because I didn't have my dad around. I was very clingy to, and I have two older sisters.
yeah,
So I was very clingy to my older sisters, their partners, because they became this like big brother figure in my life. No man, right? Like there was no
yeah,
father figure. So they would become this like brother figure. And I would be devastated when those relationships ended. It was like me going through my own breakup. And I was like, yo, this is not even my relationship.
yeah.
But for sure, like the anxiety attachment was definitely there with those relationships. A hundred
Yeah,
percent. A
that's
hundred percent.
definitely an anxious attachment style, and you have to understand that relationships are not just, the relationship, like, with a partner. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Relationships are friendships,
Right.
relationships are coworkers. So we've learned to crave, as an anxious attachment style, we learn to crave a level of closeness that we didn't receive from
Yeah.
our caregiver or our caretakers, right? So this level of closeness and worry, like, okay, what happens when they leave, is what resonates the most when it comes to an anxious attachment style. That a secure attachment style wouldn't be would feel like, okay, the intimacy or the independence in the relationship is okay, like there's trust there, right? Like if a person were to leave, if a person was to leave today, there's trust, like that they're going to come back, right? And it attributes to our caregivers, right? Like how our caregivers were when we were a child. Like my father worked as a merchant marine, and we're probably getting a little bit too
Mm-hmm.
deep, but just to share, my father worked as a
It's okay.
merchant marine, and my mom was the main caregiver at our home. But when my father was at, because he works at in one of those like is it missionary boats, or like a merchant boat? It's a merchant boat.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my Spanish is like coming out, but it's a merchant boat, right? That um, it's a merchant boat that like has the cargo boxes on them, like those. So that's what how he used to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would be at sea for 6 months, and then he would come back for 6 months, right?
Wow.
So my childhood brain did not
Mm.
take that as my father's at sea or that he's working. You know what I'm saying? I took it as he left, because nobody explained to me as a
Oh
child
yeah.
he was working. And so as an
Yeah.
adult, it went to my anxious attachment style, because I'm like, oh, now I'm worried. Like he's gonna get up and leave again. When he's gonna leave? Like he's here for 6 months. He's gone for.
Yeah.
I'm not even attributing. I'm not counting down the time. 6 months to me as a child. I'm not going
Yeah.
May, June, July. Like that's not what I'm doing. I'm just like, okay, he's here for a little bit. He's gone for a little bit. He's back. Like, oh, here comes this man. He's back. But knowing he's my dad. But my mom was there.
Yeah.
So even as an adult, like um, I trust that my mom is always going to be there for me, right? And
Yeah.
it took me a while to trust the same from my father, and I had to sit down and have a conversation with him, and be like, "How come nobody explained that to us? Like that you were going to go to work? Like you could have explained
Yeah.
that to us as a child versus it being, I'm just going to go and do my job, right? Like so
Yeah.
that's why I make it my entire mission as a mom when it comes to my son to, give him that independence, right? As well as him understanding mommy is here, but you still have a level of independence to trust that mommy will come back, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
now knows mommy's going to come back and mommy's here. Like we have that active communication where his neural pathways are not saying she just left, she's gone. Like, no, she went to the store because mommy says she's going to the store. Mommy will come back. So,
Yeah, that's a big piece I feel like in is just like this relearning of for example for you, right? Like you're wishing that your parents had just sat you down and explained
yeah,
that piece. And so taking that into your own journey and your own relationship with your son, and that I think that's a piece that I understand where it's coming from somewhat. Like I
right.
understand it's probably this like protectiveness that's trying to come through. Um, but it's kind of doing the opposite when we don't talk to our children
Yeah,
and bring that honesty, because then there's secrets, there's things that we're hiding. And so it actually makes me wonder, like, is it protection or is it because you feel uncomfortable to have the conversation with your child, right? Like, is there some sort of I'm thinking of it from my lens of like
yeah,
my mom struggling, working through jobs, struggling, and me being the baby in the family. I didn't really know to the extent of what was happening and how our financial situation was. And so I think there's just like this piece, it was probably just very uncomfortable for her to even probably admit and have that conversation with me, with my sisters. So it was just kind of like, well, we're not going to talk about it. But then what happens, right? Now I've created all these money stories, right?
yeah,
Like I've created all these different money stories. I've created all these different ways of being. And it's just this, I guess the message is like how pivotal and how much we learn at such
yeah,
a young age. At
yeah.
such a young age, we learn so much.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the way that I illustrate it to my clients, because I'm a real visual person, is that if you got to
Yeah.
think about it, when we're born onto this earth, we are a blank canvas, right? Just
Pure.
empty, white, pure blank canvas. And when we get angry, there goes a shot of red. When we get sad, there goes a shot of blue. And it's all, getting in there, the colors, right? So I'm 34, so you could imagine how beautiful of colors right? This amazing canvas looks like, right? But I also get to say to myself, um I know what, right? Because I've gotten clear with who I am. I know the pain, the trauma, the
Mm-hmm.
healing, right? The wounds that I have on that canvas. And I get to say to myself, instead of it looking like a discombobulated picture frame, right? I get to reparent myself. I get to provide myself with the
Mm,
nurturing support and guidance that I wasn't as that I feel like I lacked in my childhood. Like I said, my father was gone. I if Since I knew that now it was because of work, right? I got to nurture myself and say it's okay that he was gone. It was because of work, and have that conversation with him and receive that support from him to him to share, I loved you even when I was gone. I missed you guys. You know what I'm saying? It was little things like that that I didn't know, but had I not had the conversation, I still would have not known, right?
exactly.
So
Exactly.
just being able to just once again give yourself grace and being able to say to yourself, what is it that right? Like, go get that head, the heart, the gut connection, right? Get all that together. What
Oof.
is it that I know that I needed from myself as a child? What is it that I know that I need for myself as a teenager? What is it that I know that I need for myself as a me in this moment right now? What is it that my heart knows
Mm-hmm.
that it wants and it desires in this moment? What is it that my heart wanted and desired when it was young? What is it that my heart wanted and desired as a child? What is it that I intuitively know? What is it that I intuitively know is for the highest of my good, right? Like the highest good. Really get that head, heart, and gut connection together. Because the moment that you get those unmet needs and wants met, golden, golden.
100%. And I love that you brought that in, that so often we're thinking from our head and we forget the rest. We forget everything else. And then sometimes we're too much in our heart or too much in our gut. It's like, but what do I know? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so this connection between all three of this is like this beautiful harmony of
Yeah.
everything that we need. It's like that, I think, is our internal compass.
Yeah. And even if you need
Wow.
to do like a journal prompt a day, like I said, head, heart, gut
Mm,
connection. What is it that my head, what is it
yeah.
that my mind feels like? What are the thoughts that are racing through my head right now? Like
Mm-hmm.
what do I believe about myself to be true in this moment? Heart, what is it that my heart desires, or what is it that my heart needs in this moment? Do I truly believe in my heart what my head is saying of me to be true, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if there's a disconnection there, there's clearly something you need
Yeah.
to work on. You get what I'm saying? If you're saying to yourself, my head says I'm not worthy, my heart says I'm worthy, then there's a disconnection between your head and your heart, and you need to really do some meditation on, and subconscious deprogramming to really reprogram what is it that your mind is really feeling. What is it that your mind is really saying about you, and why is it that your heart is trying to help you overcome what your mind is saying, right? And then
Mm,
intuitively, it gut, like, do I intuitively feel like this is to be true, like where I am in this moment is to be where I'm supposed to be in this moment, like to intuitively ask yourself,
mm-hmm.
mind, body, and mind, heart, and soul connection, like this is it, like this is, you get to be a divine, like a source, of love for this world, but then you get to be a source of love for yourself, and really like tuning into you, because this is the only body that you get, the only mind that you get, the only gut that you get for the rest of however many years that you have on this earth, and you get to be in
Mm-hmm.
connection with it all, get to be, and that's
Mm.
it, period, be,
So
period.
good. Wrap it with a little bow, period. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'd love for you to, before we kind of end, actually, one thing that I always ask everybody is if you could instill your life's journey into like one piece of advice, what would that be? The hardest question.
Oh my god, that is so hard. Because my life, I wrote about it in a book, so my life has just been in one word.
One piece of advice, not one word, not
Not
one
even
word.
one word. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, this is why I needed to make sure. One piece of advice. You get to
And it could
turn.
be what's true right now.
Yeah, I think one what's true for me right now is that you get to turn your wounds into wisdom.
Mm,
Yeah,
I love
it
that.
doesn't. It serves a purpose. Everything. It 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 serves a purpose, and um, my wounds serve the purpose to get me here today, and to be able to help as many women to create healthier relationships beyond, and beyond, like within themselves and with others. So turn your wounds into wisdom.
I love that. And for those that are tuning in and are just really resonating with you and your energy and everything that you've shared, where can they follow you? I'd love for you to just share that.
So you can follow me on Instagram at She Commands. Same thing on Facebook, or go to my website to read any blog, to read blog posts on breakups and healing, which is at www.shecommands.com. Where I give amazing tips and relationship advice to really help you heal from breakups. And remember, breakups is not just relationships. Breakups is
Mm-hmm.
career breakups. Breakups is, friendship breakups. It's not just relationships, money breakups.
Yes,
There you go. So,
everything. Every piece. Oh, so good, Amy. Thank you so, so much for diving in this conversation. I know we kind of like unpacked some beautiful things. So thank you so much for, yeah, for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for turning your wounds into wisdom. I am so grateful. And yeah, I hope you have the most rest beautiful day. And to everyone who is tuning in and listening to this, I have full trust in knowing that those that are meant to hear this conversation, it's meant to be here for you. So also trust
yeah.
that. Trust
Trust
if
and
you've been
know,
here.
because Ashley and I. we've been connecting to try to meet for like a month now to get this happening, and something would always come up. So there's a reason and a purpose as to why now is the time for this message to get out there. And I know that it's going to resonate with someone, and if it does, reach out to me on Instagram or hit me up on my personal page. Yeah, there you go.
Sounds good. Oh, thank you so much. And to everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Sending you so much love. And we'll see you next week for another beautiful episode and conversation.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to leave a review and continue the conversation with me over on social media. And we'll see you in the next episode.